Buying a home is one of the most expensive, most irreversible decisions you will ever make. And in New York City, a bad one can cost you thousands of dollars before you even realize what went wrong. Many first-time buyers think they know what to look for: a cracked foundation, a leaky roof, an old boiler. But those aren't the problems that wreck people. If the red flags were that obvious, nobody would get burned. People get burned every day because the real dangers aren't physical. They're legal and financial, buried in contracts, building documents, and city records that most buyers and most real estate agents never think to pull. Your agent gets paid their several $1,000 commission when you close. Your lender gets paid their several $1,000 commission when you close. Neither one is likely to slow down the deal to walk you through what happens after you sign. As a real estate attorney in New York City, I've seen the fallout. Here are 5 hidden red flags that catch first-time buyers off guard, and what to do about each one before it costs you. Red flag 1. Your lender's maximum approval is not your budget. Here's something that catches almost every first-time buyer. You get pre-approved, the bank gives you a figure that you're pre-approved for, and you start shopping with that number in mind. But that number is the maximum the bank is willing to lend you based on a very preliminary and cursory review of your finances, not your actual life. The bank doesn't know you're planning for a kid, that you have student loan payments that have restarted, or that you filed a tax return extension and there might be a large balance due in a few months. In New York, those real life costs hit hard. Property taxes in Nassau and Suffolk are some of the highest in the state, maybe even in the country. And when the assessed value resets to your purchase price, your monthly payment can climb hundreds of dollars a year after you close. Then there are closing costs. In and around New York City, buyers pay anywhere from 2 to 6% of the purchase price in closing costs alone, on top of the down payment. Condos and new developments can push those costs even higher because sponsored transfer taxes get shifted to the buyer. You think you'll show up at closing expecting one amount, but you discover you'll have to pay thousands more. None of this accounts for what happens after you get the keys. The day you close, you're the owner and the handy person. There's nobody to call when the AC quits. Maintenance on a home could run about 1 to 3% of the home's value every year, depending on age and condition. On an $800,000 house, that's anywhere between $8,000 to $20,000 or more you probably weren't counting on spending so quickly. Before you look at a single listing, calculate what you can actually afford per month, including mortgage, taxes, insurance, common charges if you're buying a condo, co-op, and a repair reserve. Then work backward from that monthly number to your real budget. For most buyers, the comfortable number sits about 20 to 30% below the maximum the bank approved. Shop at that number, not the top. But even if you get the budget right, the next red flag can lock you into a deal you can't afford to keep. And it happens before you even realize it. Red flag 2, signing before your lawyer clears the contract. In the New York City area, attorneys manage the contract process first. When you get upstate, for instance, agents will often prepare a form contract, send to the parties to sign, and then send to attorneys for review. A little backwards to me, but that's the practice. Here in the downstate area, the contract goes back and forth between the attorneys for the parties until both sides agree on all the terms. That means the contract is where you win or lose, and most buyers don't even read it before they sign. The pressure's real. It's not uncommon for an agent to say that if you don't sign today, the seller will be sending the contract to other offers they have waiting. So you feel rushed to sign the contract and put down your deposit before your attorney has had a chance to go back and forth on edits. This is especially true with contracts from online auctions. Once that deposit is in, getting it back can be extremely difficult. A weak mortgage contingency might say you lose a deposit if your financing falls through for almost any reason, even if the bank fails. An inspection window might be so short you can't schedule an inspector in time. And verbal promises about repairs that never made it into the written contract don't mean anything. The New York Attorney General specifically warns buyers not to sign anything under pressure and to have their own independent attorney review all contracts before signing. Not the seller's attorney, not a friend who practices in a different area, not the agent, your own real estate attorney. This matters even more now because New York tightened its property condition disclosure rules. Sellers used to be able to skip the disclosure form and just give the buyer a $500 credit at closing. That option is mostly gone and new flood risk questions were added. But even with the updated form, caveat emptor, buyer beware still applies. Don't rely on what the seller tells you have your attorney verify. I recently had a deal come in where I received several emails from an agent one evening. Everyone involved in the deal was copied on that email. Then I received a separate email just to me saying that buyers want to sign ASAP because the listing agent has backup offers, so if the contract isn't in by a certain time tomorrow, the seller would move on. Literally, since these emails came in during the evening, this agent was saying I had less than 12 hours to review and have the buyer sign, including the hours I was about to go to sleep. I called the buyers in the morning to discuss. Lo and behold, they had lots of questions, including wanting to do an inspection, which the agent was telling them we can sign contract and then deal with an inspection afterwards. I had to put the brakes on all of it. And fortunately, the buyers agreed with me to slow things down to make sure everything we wanted to get done, including review contract and schedule inspection, was done before signing the contract. Never sign a contract and never hand over a deposit until your own independent real estate attorney has reviewed every clause and confirmed the contract matches your intention of the deal. If someone pressures you to sign before your lawyer's done, that's a bad sign on its own. Even with a bulletproof contract, there's a category of problems that lives in the building's paperwork, and most buyers never think to look there. Red flag 3, inspection results that don't actually protect you. Most first-time buyers think an inspection report is their safety net. It's not. An inspection gives you information, and whether that information actually protects you depends entirely on what your contract says. Something I'm increasingly seeing is a seller presenting an inspection report to potential buyers to induce them to enter into contract faster. The problem is that you don't know who the inspector was. It could have been the seller's cousin for all you know. You need to have your own inspector at the ready, someone that you trust will do a thorough and complete evaluation of the property. Here's how I've seen it played out. There's an open house that you attend. Maybe there are other people there, so you feel like you may have to submit an offer quickly. Your agent likely says the same thing. The listing agent shares with your agent that they have lots of interest. Whoever can get a signed contract back fastest is getting the deal. You ask about an inspection, and the listing agent says they have a report from an inspection the seller already did, but only sharing it once someone has submitted an offer and is agreeing to waive doing their own inspection. All of this is intended to get you as a buyer feeling like you have to make a decision right then and there or risk losing the house. If you decide to move forward, that's where all the rush and pressure comes in to get a contract signed. Unless your contract specifically includes repairs the seller agrees to do or credit in lieu of those repairs, you may have to choose between closing on a damaged house or losing your deposit, all because you decided to rely on an inspection report provided by the seller. In New York City, inspectors regularly find water penetration in older buildings, structural changes made without permits, and mechanical systems past their expected lifespan. Out in Nassau and Suffolk, add septic systems, possible underground oil tanks, and storm damage that might not show on a dry day. The New York Attorney General says you should negotiate a contractual right to an independent inspection and the right to cancel if the inspection is unsatisfactory. You need the right to walk away, not just the right to get a report. Before you even submit an offer, make sure you've negotiated for your right to inspect the property. If you're okay with buying a property sight unseen because you're in construction or you're going to flip, okay, but otherwise, fight to allow for you to do an inspection. But inspection issues are physical. You can see the crack or the water stain. The next red flag is completely invisible until it shows up as a bill with your name on it. Red flag 4, co-op and condo document problems. This is the red flag that surprises my clients the most, especially first-time buyers in the 5 boroughs. You spend all this time checking the unit, checking your financing, checking the contract, and the building itself turns out to be the problem. Co-ops are where this hits hardest. A co-op board can reject your application for any reason or no reason whatsoever, and the process can be long and opaque. But even before you get to the board, you should be reviewing the building's financial statements, and here's why. If the building has an underfunded reserve fund or a high underlying mortgage, the maintenance charges you're paying every month could jump suddenly when the building needs capital. I'm talking about a 6-figure facade repairs that get split across the units as special assessments. As we mentioned before, if you're using the maximum pre-approval minute for shopping when you're already stretching to afford the monthly payment, a surprise assessment can push you over the financial edge. Board minutes can tell you things the listing never will. Water leaks that keep coming back, elevator failures, disputes by and among other owners, pending litigation, You'd never know any of this from a walkthrough. Condos have their own version. If there's pending litigation against the building for construction defects that can block your financing or signal serious problems ahead, new developments carry extra risk because the sponsor might still control the board, have unsold units sitting empty, or leave common areas unfinished. Make sure you review the offering plan, building financial statements, board minutes, and any pending litigation before you commit, not after. Many listing agents have access to these documents beforehand, so ask them before submitting an offer. I had a deal a few months back where the condo building was self-managed. Since documents are managed by the people living in the building, it wasn't the most on-point experience. There were no financial reports done by accountants because the building itself was doing its own taxes. When we asked for any kind of financial information, we were sent a Google Doc with the last 2-quarter profit and loss. When we asked about common charges, we were told that the building hired a guy to keep costs low and everyone just sends payment via Venmo. Not what you typically expect, but it works for my client. Everyone has different risk profiles, so understanding whether the building's financial profile fits within your risk tolerance is something you have to decide. But what if the problem isn't the unit and isn't the building? What if it's attached to the property itself, sitting in city records, and follows you home after closing whether you like it or not? Red flag 5, title issues. This is the layer most buyers never even hear about. Title problems, open permits, city violations can all attach to the property, and after closing, they become your problem. In New York City, the Department of Buildings and the Department of Housing Preservation and Development track every complaint, violation, and permit filed on a property. If there's a violation on file, that's an immediate hazard. No heat, no hot water, dangerous electrical conditions, and lenders and insurance pay attention to those. Open DOB violations for unpermitted work, illegal apartments, or unsafe facades can block your closing or delay your financing. And this is what catches people off guard. In transaction where a buyer is getting a mortgage, the lender will want title insurance, which is offered up by title companies that search. The big problem is that if a seller is unaware of these issues, you could move forward with a contract, lose 2 or 3 months waiting for sellers to cure an issue, and then seller needs to cancel the contract, and you've spent time and money on your loan application. You should consider pulling DOB and HPD records for the property even before going to an open house. In the 5 borough, it's public record. If there's something you find against a property like, use it as a point of negotiation. It's not easy when I receive a transaction to represent a seller and then I'm the first person to let them know they have open violations or permits to deal with because there's a time and money cost to resolving those issues. Before you sign anything, speak with a real estate attorney. Not after, but even if you avoid every red flag on this list, there's one more number that blindsides almost every first-time buyer in New York, and it hits you at the closing table. Closing costs in New York City are not what most people expect. We're talking transfer taxes, mansion taxes, attorney fees, title insurance, bank fees. It adds up fast and nobody breaks it down for you ahead of time. I put together a full video explaining exactly what closing costs look like when you buy in New York City, and you can watch it right over here.